This doesn't make sense either.
Yeah. These leads are not as large as we've seen in polling. Like in most polls, like it's like Trump has like a double-digit lead on immigration, and then Kamala has a double-digit lead on abortion.
Yeah, both of these. I've seen exit polls with 80% for Medicare all when they all voted against Bernie. Yeah, I mean that is not that shocking. For the record, that is not that shocking at all.
Very carefully to make sure that in Philadelphia,
reveal.
especially where there's a strong black vote, where they need
Ettingermentum
to
face reveal, chat.
drive up those margins, that they can get there before the end of voting today, Jake.
All right,
more important dog reveal.
Let's go south now to Caitlin Collins in the Palm Beach area. And Caitlin, do we have any idea when we're going to hear from Donald Trump this evening? Because obviously 4 years ago,
we've already heard from Donald Trump this evening. He's been tweeting about how there's been.
Any idea what his plans are?
Jake probably is not aware of this, but we're Trump watchers here, and he's already tweeted about how the election is being stolen in Philadelphia. So I feel like they are not.
That has been the thing that I've seen. We have the most concrete information for. They haven't really been releasing a lot of like raw turnout data in a lot of states, but like from what I heard from like the local party chair Bob Brady, the turnout was has been very solid there. They think they can get the margin that they need. Turnout is overall across the board projected in a lot of states to be higher than 2020, which I'm taking chat, by the way. Very much so, which is not something a lot of pollsters kind of expected. I think Franklin and Marshall was a poll. They did a poll of Pennsylvania a week or so ago, and they found Kamala Harris up by 4 with registered voters, but down by 1 in their likely voter model. And the person who conducts the survey said like the numbers that they were seeing, the high turnout they were seeing in Pennsylvania, like means that they think that their likely voter model may not be like exactly correct.
Yeah, because everyone, like all the polls that looked at low and mid propensity voters, like and even looked at like potential turnout, made it seem like a high turnout would not be favoring the Democratic Party. But now looking at the places in Philadelphia, looking at the places in Pennsylvania where like Democrats are expecting high turnout from Democratic voters is kind of going against that.
Yeah, and I'd like to emphasize to chat, early exit polls do not matter in this country. They're very accurate overseas sometimes. But
nationally, only 7% of voters
yeah, all right, let's listen in and then we'll talk about
numbers. It. 43% dissatisfied, 29% angry, 72% of the electorate.
Who the is the 7% enthusiastic?
Dissatisfied or angry.
That's me.
What about America's best days, we ask? Are they in the future or are they in the past? 61% of voters in this election across the country say America's best days are ahead of the country. 6 in 10 say so. 34% say the best days are in the past. And finally, President Joe Biden's approval rating, it's at 41% in these early preliminary exit poll findings. 58% of voters in this election across the country nationally disapprove of the way that the incumbent Democratic president is doing his job.
It's over.
All right,
it's done. Trump is winning.
And thanks so much. Let's talk about it with our panel and Dana Bash. Obviously, this is early exit poll data, but
it's done. It's done. It's over, guys. Sorry. Exit poll said so. It's done.
Yeah. No, that I think 41. I don't know. Let me check what the average is. I think he may be at like 39. Yeah, I don't think Biden's winning.
Yeah, it's Biden's chances. I know we were Biden dead enders here at the HasanAbi broadcast, but I believe that the Biden chances are looking pretty bad right now.
Yeah. Well, 538 has his approval at 38.5. And exit polling isn't representative of the electorate. You have a lot of people who vote early and can't be contacted for these exit polls because they're not showing up on election day. Like in Georgia, I think 80% of the vote is early. So if they were trying to do it in this state, you would not be getting a very representative sample at all. But election day voters are usually tilt more Republican. So you would think that this sample would be one that would be a little bit worse for him. But again, these things like mean nothing, people. Yeah, sorry, I'll fix the mic.
So what do you think? What do you think is more meaningful out of all the data that we've seen thus far? What are you looking at as like? What are you looking at so far from all of the turnout data readily available?
Yeah, well, the fact that it's on the turnout is on pace to match, or this is kind of theoretical, and but it is something some people are saying, and like the Franklin Marshall pollster like did like hint towards this. The fact that turnout is higher overall, is not something that a lot of pollsters were projecting. And this could turn like two ways, I think, because in one sense, it like could mean that there's a surge of low propensity voters that could maybe lean in Trump's direction, people who the pollsters couldn't reach, or it could mean that like there are certain like other voters who are being downweighted in the polling, and they might like be leaning more Democratic. I think Ann Selzer, when she was explaining the results of her poll in Iowa, said that what she saw wasn't really a shift in attitudes, but like a way higher, like a kind of changing of the likely electorate in her poll that reflected like increased a female vote, like increased liberal, like older females. And that was what she said was the shift. And a lot of pollsters are really kind of waiting by the results of the 2020 election, which gets you a lot less variance, and it might be obscuring potential shifts that could help Democrats. This is all very theoretical, though. What has
been the most shocking thing you've seen thus far from all the early data that goes against like what you thought? Like, because everyone has like a skeleton of like what they assume is going to happen on election day. Do you feel like the additional turnout from like strong Democratic constituencies or strong Democratic areas is shocking, but also could this still mean like this turnout is not necessarily for Democrats, but instead for like a lot of young people who are dissatisfied with the current administration and maybe taking a shot in the dark because they were too young to remember what the Trump administration looked like?
Yeah, that would be a bit of a new thing. Generally, younger voting has been better. What's this? Oh, the Arizona exit poll didn't actually had support for like legal. Oh my God, look at that Florida abortion polling, plus 33 legal. And democracy is the most important issue in the MSNBC thing. This reminds me a little bit of the exit polling in 2022, where they found liberal, like, because throughout the 2022 elections, we had things that like the economy, immigration, and crime were all ranked the highest in the pre-election polling. But when the exit polls came in, like I think in Michigan it showed like 44% of voters were voting had abortion as their most important issue. So, and that issue kind of makeup would match a lot with the Marist poll that had Kamala up by 4, which was a bit of an outlier compared to the other polls that were tied. But Marist is a very strong pollster, and these approval ratings for Biden are actually a little bit better than what the polling averages say again.
So while we look at the exit polls with a grain of salt, while we take it with a grain of salt, it still does seem to, at least for election day voters that are being polled in this circumstance, it seems like they are they're matched up in ways that I think favor Kamala Harris.
Yeah, this is a little bit better than what a lot of polling has shown, I would say. But again, these things are like not useful. And in the last week, we have heard a lot about like how Okay, sorry, I'll fix this. I'm sorry, my mic has been bad, everybody. The Kamala people said that late deciding voters were breaking their way by double digits. Like the Puerto Rico stuff was helping them. Supposedly, Puerto Rican turnout in Philadelphia was very, very high.
Yeah. I'm trying to find a number on the Florida abortion, the Florida abortion ballot. Like, polls suggest the majority of Florida voters are backing Amendment 4, but the amendment must reach a 60% threshold to pass. And surveys are indicating that while it has strong support, the campaign might not quite meet that bar in the fairly conservative state. But I don't know if there was any polling conducted on this, but I believe that it will likely hit that 60% marker.
Yeah, the polling, it was a bit touch and go with that. Yeah, Florida has a rule because liberal policies are pretty popular there, and they have a very strong state referendum system that you need to hit 60% of the vote for the referendum to pass, and that's meant explicitly to stop these kinds of more liberal abortion measures from passing.
Yeah. People are saying you need to turn the microphone towards your face if you want it to not peak the type of microphone that you have and speak directly into it. But I don't know if you're capable of doing that right now. It's all good. It doesn't really matter. Okay. Is there anything you're looking forward to in the upcoming hours? I mean, when do you think people will get a better understanding of like what the situation looks like once people start counting the votes, right?
Yeah, well, the first polls are going to close in 45 minutes in Indiana and Kentucky, and those states aren't super representative. You have Indiana is sort of a Midwestern state, but it's very different than the rest of the Midwest, very different voting patterns. It's very evangelical. But there is one county in Indiana that will be very useful here. It's Hamilton County, north of Indianapolis, a very, very, very historically Republican county. Has voted Republican for like the past 100 years, but also very wealthy, very well-educated, and has moved away from Republicans for that reason in recent years. I think Biden lost by roughly 8 points. So Hamilton will be a really important county to watch because that's not really that big of a lead for him.
Yeah, that's actually kind of shocking. Trump at 51%, at least for same-day voters, versus Kamala Harris at 47%. Is actually looking bad for Trump. And I suspect that this is, once again, I mean, we saw this. We saw Kamala Harris pick up on the economy in the last couple of months.
Because they ran on fucking trans shit and not their actual plans.
Yeah, which also the part of the actual plans that they ran on was like tariffs, which I think, to give credit to the campaign, it was one of the strongest defenses I've seen from the Kamala Harris campaign was to immediately go, oh, tariffs, that's a sales tax for everybody. That will skyrocket inflation, which is true.
There's a firm I know called Blueprint that does polling on like messaging, and they found that the message about tariffs basically being a sales tax was their best performing message that like really hurt Trump in a lot of ways. It was their worst thing. Yeah, that astral galactic X person has like been saying that every single thing that they see is good for Trump. Only +7?
This is the most insane. I don't trust exit polls at all. This is insane. Who do you trust more to handle abortion? 44% say nationwide they trust Trump. That's
also fake.
Literally no sense.
Polarized.
This doesn't make sense either.
These leads are not as large as we've seen in polling. Like in most polls, like it's like Trump has like a double-digit lead on immigration, and then Kamala has a double-digit lead on abortion.
Yeah, both of these. I've seen exit polls with 80% for Medicare all when they all voted against Bernie. Yeah, I mean that is not that shocking. For the record, that is not that shocking at all. Voters are stupid, so that's not. Yeah. That does make sense. But all I'll say is, in terms of like Kamala Harris being this close to Donald Trump on immigration is nutty. And Donald Trump being this close to Kamala Harris on abortion is also nutty. Both of those consistently have been polled at like double-digit leads for Kamala Harris on abortion, double-digit leads almost for Donald Trump on immigration.
Yeah. I saw the Wisconsin poll on NBC. They had the combined economy and immigration was 44% as a top issue. Well, democracy plus abortion was 50%. Immigration was the fourth high. It was the lowest issue. It was below 10% as a top thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nationally, abortion plus democracy is 49%. Well, economy plus immigration is 42%. So this is a relatively favorable issue environment, I would say, for Democrats compared to what some polling has said. But again, exit polling really can't be trusted here. it's historically not super useful.
Preliminary results of Edison Research exit poll: 84% of Wisconsin voters were white versus 86 in 2020. 63% of Arizona voters were white versus 74 in 2020. 57% of Georgia voters were white versus 61% in 2020. 69% of North Carolina voters were white versus 65% in 2020.
Yeah, those white vote shares going down by that much, and Arizona and Georgia are a little. Georgia, we do track early voting by race, and I guess, yeah, I get that would be actually represent a slight decline in the white overall vote share compared to early voting, which would not be good for Trump. But like North Carolina, I think this is just kind of noisy. The North Carolina thing doesn't track as much with other things.
Milwaukee is going to have to recount every absentee ballot that had been counted because of this issue. Apparently, just before 2 p.m., an election observer noticed a panel of tabulators in Milwaukee's central count weren't properly closed. The panel that wasn't closed contains tabulators on and off switches. They were supposed to have been locked in the morning. After discovering the issue, Milwaukee election chief Paulina Gutierrez went from tabulator to tabulator with representatives from both parties to close lock those panels. If it would have been tampered with, it would have completely turned off. That would be very evident, Gutierrez told me. I don't think it was tampered with. I think it was just a mistake. And Jacobs, Democratic WC commissioner who's here, said elections are run at the municipal level, and at this point, it's up to the Milwaukee Elections Committee and city attorney's office to decide what their plan is. Now, that's, if I'm not mistaken, Milwaukee is where they count every single vote by mail, right? Like they wait until the...
Yeah, no, I don't think Milwaukee does everything through mail. I know Wisconsin does have some mail voters. I heard that they're going to count most of the Milwaukee votes at 3 a.m. like they did in 2020.
Yeah.
So that'll be great. That'll be really good for not making Republicans freak the fuck out.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I if I'm not mistaken, I think all of the states mail voters are all collected in Milwaukee, and it comes out of Milwaukee. Like they take all the votes from every other part of the state.
Yeah, they also found that they polled. Well, this is in Michigan. They had the number of people like on U.S. support for Israel. They found 29 saying too strong, 27 saying not strong enough, and 38 saying about right. So I guess you have more, like among the people who actually sort of care about the issue, you have more saying it's too strong, which is something new. But Michigan is supposed to be one of the really pro-Palestinian states. So yeah, they have minus 10 favorables for Trump on the NBC poll. That's actually worse than his polling in 538. He's been at minus 8 most of the year.
Wisconsin exit polls, top issue, 35% economy, 32% democracy. Dude, this is like the liberals are primed. Liberals are in the tank for MSNBC, I think. Like the democracy being a top priority, like 18% on abortion, 32% on democracy is crazy.
Yeah. This reminds me a bit of 2022, where these issues that were sort of seen, the polling indicated were very strong for Republicans and were dominant issues, actually ended up not clocking in that high.
Immigration, I've been saying, is never going to be the top priority. And
immigration is so low here.
Yeah. And what's really fucking annoying about this is that I kept repeating this point over and over again. This is exactly, you're right, a 2022 revamp where like crime and immigration and trans issues are going to be top priorities. Like this is going to be real good for the Republicans. And it's like, no, it's not. Nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah. The NBC only found Trump +2 on crime.
Georgia exit poll showing abortion should be legal at 62%, no at 35%. That's expected.
Yeah, that's actually a little better than I would think because Georgia's very religious. We have a lot of conservative Democrats through the black vote.
So overall, are you still firm on your lean Kamala assessment, or are you saying it's like even higher?
No, I mean it's tough to really come to any conclusions with like what we're seeing now. I think from what I've heard, the stuff in Pennsylvania looks good for her, and that was the state I was the most wavering on. Her polling in Michigan has been pretty solid, and like early voting, I've the Secretary of State said that there should be high turnout. The one question mark in that world is Wisconsin, because we just have so little information on it. But if the Seltzer poll is anything like close to correct, she should be doing fine there. I talked with people who I know who are active in politics in like all of these states, like everybody from former professors to local reporters to polling firms that are in each swing state. And every single person in each state, like before the day before the election, when I was doing my final rating, said they felt like pretty decent on Kamala in their state. The people in North Carolina were particularly optimistic. We'll see like what that is or how that works. But there are some people saying that like the high turnout does represent the pollsters might have been too overzealous in weighting Trump support, but we just don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So if things go according to your assessment, what are the states that you think Kamala is? I mean, what do you think Pennsylvania is going to look like, and when do you think we'll find out? About
the way that the counting works is that you have, and this is vindicating for a lot of what I've said about Trump just over the past year, and why he has, in my opinion, he has overperformed Senate candidates. He's seen as a competent, strong leader in a way that these other Republicans aren't. But the way that this works is we're going to have almost full results from Georgia, North Carolina, and Michigan before around midnight. We will have a lot of results from Pennsylvania before midnight too, and we will probably have a good sense of where that's going, and they might call it if she's doing very well there. Wisconsin will take until tomorrow to get like a full thing, but again, that feels like an election day thing. Again, they're not really tracking the early voters. But Nevada and Arizona, we won't know for the rest of the week. In Nevada and Arizona, we have a lot of votes that are just coming in through mail that like will come in after the election that they haven't counted yet. So if it comes down to Nevada and Arizona, you might not know who the winner of this is until like Friday, Thursday.
So, do you think that white votes being higher actually will end up benefiting the Democratic Party, kind of in a way that it did in like 2022, or do you think it just like automatically means that the Republicans are outperforming?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really trust that data. Again, like I said, they only are polling exit poll people on election day. Election day is historically better for Republicans than early voters. So you would kind of expect the demographics to be better for Republicans. What's surprising about this is that these demographics, according to this one Reuters poll, we're seeing lots of different ones coming in. The demographics should be better for Republicans, but the issue polling isn't as good as the polling has been. Trump's favorables are lower than what the polling had him at. Biden's approval is slightly higher. His issue leads on the biggest issues are smaller. Even like this, that's a lower, like we had some polling that had support for deportation in a majority range. And this does kind of indicate that I think Democrats should have tried to run on a pathway to citizenship, but we're past that point. But yeah, it's a mixed bag. I'd have to see what the Reuters stuff is saying. It's apples to apples, I bet. But okay. I wouldn't say that higher black turnout is good. Higher white turnout is good for Democrats. Have
you seen this? The exit poll from Fox, Voter Analysis National. What should happen to illegal immigrants living in the U.S.? Chance for legal status, 56%. Deportation, 43%. This tracks, by the way, for those of you who are shocked to find this, this is the most consistent position. When faced with both of these positions, voters overwhelmingly will say they want chance for legal status over deportation. And yeah. I have repeated this position over and over again. While this is just like I guess it's a voter analysis. I suspect this is an exit poll, right? But 43% is dangerously high. It is not shocking. This is the least shocking. If you actually look at immigration data or immigration questions and the way Americans react to it, this is incredibly consistent. If anything, yeah. It's less. It's a smaller percentage chance for legal status than what people usually report as.
Yeah,
it's usually 60%.
Stuff. The North Carolina exit polling from NBC had Trump as too extreme by +5.
Wow.
Yeah, and Pennsylvania, it was Kamala was 49-49 on To Extreme, not To Extreme.
That's crazy. Here's Michigan Secretary of State saying turnout is off the charts all across Michigan.
Yeah, that's Jocelyn Benson.
Yeah.
Another possible sign of the polls might not have been reflecting the likely voter environment. Jarrett Renshaw from Reuters says, sources tell me that Philadelphia vote total will surpass 2020 totals. Some precincts are as high as 150% of 2020 totals. I think those are mostly college areas because in 2020, a lot of students weren't on campus and they voted from home. But it still is a good sign for them because Philadelphia in 2022 was pretty mediocre turnout, even as Democrats did very well in Pennsylvania.
Do you think that there's any shot that it's disaffected younger pro-Trump voters coming out in large numbers as well, that it increases the turnout? Or do you think it's all people in the tank for Kamala who are, looking at the situation and going fuck no, we don't want Donald Trump?
Yeah, I mean, if you get to the point where you have these low propensity voters, they're not going to be as solid for Democrats as the people who show up every time in Philadelphia. But any increase in the Philadelphia or any solid Democratic counties total is going to give them more votes, even if the margin slightly goes down. You'd rather win a county like Philadelphia 75-25 with far higher turnout than you would want to win it with 80-20, but with lower turnout. At a certain point, the slight shifts in margins can still reflect a better vote total for your party. And even then, the way that they were weighting polls in Pennsylvania, there was one poll where the registered voter screen had Kamala up by 4 points. It was a different one than the Franklin and Marshall poll. It was by TIPP, and they just straight up got rid of the entire city of Philadelphia on their likely voter screen because they didn't rate non-whites and women and urbanites as likely voters. So a lot of these pollsters that were polling these states did not expect good turnout from these Democratic constituencies that turned out in 2020. If you have cities like Philadelphia or Michigan more broadly turning out at the same rates as then, the polling we have seen might not have been reflecting the actual environment.
So, question for you, and I might have misunderstood this. Did you say that the Reuters reporting shows that its overall turnout is beat in comparison to 2020, or just same day turnout?
It says the Philadelphia vote total will surpass 2020 totals.
That is insane.
Yeah,
that's actually incredibly unexpected, considering that it was a COVID, there was a COVID bump, right? Ease of access to voting.
Had mediocre turnout in 2020. I think Biden's margin that in Philadelphia was actually smaller than Hillary's. In 2022, it had mediocre turnout relative to the state. Democrats won that year because they did well across the rest of the state, but it was seen as a bit kind of concerning. And it could have been reason to expect that Philadelphia could have been relatively weaker this year, on top of that. So for it to increase turnout overall is a bit of an about face and not one that should be bad for Democrats.
Okay. It might be attributable to college students actually in Philly compared to 2020 when they weren't on campus. Oh, that's true.
Maybe part of that might be the case.
Yeah,
we have seen far higher turnout in college towns everywhere.
That's true. Yeah. I still personally worry that, there might be some secret sauce in there for Donald Trump, but that might also be coming from the fact that I think the female vote percentage on these same day voter turnouts from Philadelphia and from college campuses specifically is going to be indicative of whether or not it's favoring whether or not this is favoring Kamala Harris or if it's favoring Donald Trump. But I might also be totally biased because I'm on Twitch. I'm surrounded by fucking, Aiden Ross fans who despise me, and that might be causing me to see a different reality because there are so many, I got a little spooked by Brother Banks. I don't know if you've heard what happened last night at Ettingermentum. Brother Banks, Mr. FaZe himself came out and openly endorsed Donald Trump, and it shocked me to my core.
Yeah.
Okay, all jokes aside, like the reasoning that he presented, however, was everything that I've criticized the Democratic Party on messaging, like including but not limited to the hypocrisy on the border wall. He like directly pointed to that. And then, of course, there was a lot of, fake nonsense that he believed that Elon Musk said on the Joe Rogan Experience about like, Democrats are shipping migrants into fucking swing states to change the outcome of the election or whatever, which was bullshit. But like the no new wars narrative, like these are, if this is sticky and if the podcast, their vote is, if the podcast watchers out there, young men specifically, are going out and voting in large numbers, then I don't know, it might be a shocking revelation when people are actually counting the votes. That is something that I'm legitimately worried about. And then also beyond that, I've been thinking about like in our industry, there's a lot of people who want to be brand friendly, and even if they have like allegiances to Trump, they have often not communicated that before. This goes along with the thing that I've talked about before, which is that like there are no more shy Trump voters. Everyone is like very loud about their Trump support in comparison to like 2016 and maybe even in 2020. The scariest aspect of that, I think, is the fact that Trump was president for 4 years, and a lot of people are not recognizing the danger that he presents, especially amongst young men who were possibly too young to remember what it was like when Trump was president. Right, so they have a fresh face,
like a meme in people's minds.
Yeah, so they have a new attitude towards Trump, that they look at him and potentially don't recognize the danger that he presents. And if anything, they're like, well, he was president already. You can't say that he's going to be fascist when he, was president. And I didn't see this as like a fascist leadership. As a matter of fact, I remember it fondly. Right, like that's especially because like a lot of people also have completely wiped out COVID from their memories in general. So they don't even consider that. So these are some of the reasons why I am a little bit worried, I guess, about how the youth vote might swing.
I'm a bit skeptical of that. Just because they were trying to make this push, and like this stuff was rumored back in 2022, and you still had these college campus areas go like 90% Democratic. I think like if we were getting to like if we are reaching 2020 turnout, the case like the whole point of these voters is that they're low propensity and disengaged, and they're not engaged in the process. So if we're reaching 2020 turnout, you would expect these people to be first-time voters being added onto that. So we would be getting like above 2020 turnout. If we're like in line with it, then the only case for these non-voters to make up a significant share of the electorate is if you're assuming that Democratic constituencies are making up a smaller share of the electorate, which is, I think, what some pollsters supposedly did. I've read that that's what some of them might have done. But with the high turnout we're seeing in these Democratic areas, it doesn't really seem to indicate that the mix of voting is less Democrats, more like non-voters. The state of where each county is making up what seems kind of typical.
Okay. Well, I don't want to keep you any further for now. I'll call you back up throughout the day.
The polling is about to the first results are going to come in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, we can wait on that. I can have you back in the next 20 minutes if you'd like. If you want to take a little break in between.
I think I was about to order some food, but I'll come on once Indiana comes in.
All right, perfect. All right, and we'll get back to you in a little bit. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, I'll see you guys soon.
All right, bye. Okay, let's take a look at some more of these exit polls that are coming out right now and try to extrapolate some data off of it.
Harris was able sort of to detach